Happy Friday. Good evening. My name is Raj Naik, and welcome to Fridays Live with me. This evening, I have with me a very special guest. She is somebody whom I admire. Her journey has been inspiring. She is an internationally acclaimed producer. I mean, you have guessed it by now. I have with me this evening Guneet Monga. Guneet, welcome to Fridays Live with me, Raj Naik. Guneet?
Hi.
Guneet, hi. Sorry, I
Yes.
thought you were there. Somehow we didn't.
No, it's such a pleasure to be here on your show. Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is technical glitches happens all the time. No matter how much I try to perfect, it happens
That
all the time. And the beauty about this show is it's live, and
yes,
it's not packaged, it's not edited. So all the flaws that comes along with technology happens here. But
it's
that's
raw.
the fun of it. So, and I keep saying this every time. Every time I've done something, there's always a new problem that crops up. But that's fine.
Yeah.
I think we learn from it.
Yeah,
So,
for
Guneet,
some
thank
reason
you.
it put me on backstage, but we are here now.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole idea of this is I wanted to do it myself because until until the pandemic started, I didn't really know how to operate a computer properly. And even though I spent 3 decades in the corporate life, and so for me, this whole challenge is doing it myself. That's what gives me the adrenaline rush and going live. So, and that's why I don't
Awesome.
even call it a show. I call it a live chat, right? And that's what
Yes.
it's all about. So
Yes.
first of all, thank you for being with me here this evening. Okay,
Mhm.
I mean, you had an inspiring journey, and you've taken some of the best stories to the world. So I'm going to start by asking you. Tell me, what's your story?
What's my story? I was born brought up in Delhi
Hmm.
and I moved to Bombay in 2006. I was in and out. And when I was 27, oh sorry, yeah, I was 21 then, and by the time 2007, I had my first film that I released called Say Salam India. I came to Bombay with my neighbor investing 50 lakhs, giving me 50 lakhs, and I used to do meetings in कॉफ़ी शॉप्स एंड मॉल्स saying मेरे पास 50 लाख रुपए है किसी के पास कहानी है तो मुझे पिक्चर बनानी है and I met a director who also had access to some funds and we came together and made a movie and then that film released. It was called Say Salam India. The film released in 2007 and we were timing it to the World Cup and India lost the World Cup. हमारी पिक्चर रिलीज हुई और सिनेमा ने बोला कि वापस ले लो इनको, यहाँ थिएटर जल जाएंगे अगर आपने क्रिकेट की बात की. So then I ended up releasing the film on my own, school to school, one single screening. I booked morning slots at single theaters, and went school to school and pre-sold shows, and did some 300 plus shows like that. Made all the money back, 50 rupees a kid, and I booked single screens in 10,000 rupees, and there were 1,000 seaters. So each show I used to make 40,000, and then once the momentum started, we sold the I managed to sell the interval and get more marketing money into it and make it whole thing work with a bunch of interns and myself as a 22-year-old. I was figuring it out and figuring out distribution, which is not typical way. So yeah, that was my first. And then once I was sure that okay, I can be responsible and return the money, I was like, okay, let's double it down. And then I formed a company called Sikkya Entertainment. My next film was Das Vidanya, and I had I have so much love and respect for that film, and so happy that I was able to produce that and as my first under the company that I formed, Sikkia, which I still run. Post that, I went through a big personal tragedy and did not really want to run my Sikkia. It takes a lot to be an entrepreneur, or to constantly raise money and find a script and creatively align and then take so much responsibility of so much money. So I started working with Anurag Kashyap. I ran his company, Anurag Kashyap Films, as the CEO and a partner for 5 years. And post that, I was ready to get back to Sikya. And then Lunchbox happened. We were able to do Masan. With Anurag Kashyap Films, I did around 20 films. Gangs of Wasseypur, That Girl in Yellow Boots, Shaitan, Ayya, Shahid. Really, really learned a lot being on that job. And then back to running Sikkya, and then Lunchbox, Masan, which are co-productions, and more recently Surya Potru and Paglet.
Interesting. Why the name Sikya? Where does Sikya come from?
It's a very good question, and it's a very nice story. My mom named it. We actually were setting up the Svidanya, and I didn't have a company name to put on posters. And my mom was cancer stage 4. She was in a hospital. I still remember, and I was like, "Company ka naam nahi hai," And she was my partner, and she said Sikkya. And उस टाइम मुझे लग रहा था कि मतलब it's such a Punjabi name, and I was young 20s. I wanted a cool अंग्रेजी नाम. And she said Sikya, and I was like, ठीक है, मतलब उनका दिल रखने के लिए मैंने नाम तो रख लिया. But over the years, I lost her in few months of setting up the company. But I think this is one of her gifts to me, because it means keep learning and keep growing. And I have grown to be very proud of it. I have grown to imbibe that deeply, and those are our principles at the company, where we focus on learning and growing. And every film is unique. Every project is such a passion project, and we are in such a subjective industry that I think we constantly need to be grounded and keep learning and seek se sikhya bana.
Acha, Sikh se Sikya.
Ji.
Sorry about your mom, and I wish she was there to see your success and see all the great things that you're doing. But that's life, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, so tell me, you always want how did you always wanted to be in the film and entertainment industry? What's your background? I mean, how did you decide to get into this field?
I studied mass communication, and again in Delhi, in IP University. And my best friend's mother was somebody who worked in international films. Her name is Anurita Sehgal, and she was a production coordinator in international films that happen out of Delhi, because INB is out of Delhi, and a lot of international films happen out of Delhi. So I was her intern's intern. So I was like the photocopy girl, and I used to hang out with her in her office, and I was very inspired in behind the scenes of filmmaking. So I started just being the runner and the girl that brings chai, gets photocopy, puts the stationery in order, does computer say digital, phone diary say computer digitize. So started with that. My first film that I was an official intern was after my college was a film called Valley of Flowers by Pan Nanil. So that was my official intern. Before that, I used to keep running in and out of her office and give her a hand in whatever she needed. And I was her assistant intern and assistant in Valley of Flowers. And I wanted to then learn and become like a production coordinator and do what she does, which I was able to do in the next film, which was a Murder Unveiled, a love story, a Canadian telefilm. Then I wanted to be a production manager, line producer, gain more knowledge, gain more way of executing movies and being behind movies and running a film set. So then I became a line producer, and I was able to. And I also was very young. I was in in late teens, and I've also and I also doubled up as being the EA to the producer, to the international producer. So I used to be EA, I used to be every department's assistant, and I think that was the most magical time, because if the art department needs a hand, I was over enthusiastic and ready. If a costume department needs something, purchasing, lookbook, or photocopy, besides doing my own job, I was over excited. I have made call sheets being a production coordinator. So just learned the whole behind the scenes. And the director of Murder Unveiled, a Love Story, his name is Mr. Vic Sarin, Canadian, Indian Canadian. He came back after Murder Unveiled, 2 weeks after, and said, I am producing something. He was a director on a Canadian telefilm, and he came back and he said, I am producing a film called Partition, which is Nev Campbell and Jimmy Mistry and Irfan Khan. And he said, I'd like you to, I was his production coordinator. He said, I'd like you to be my India head. And he literally taught me movie magic, budgeting, got me my first computer. And I think I was in that position where I was ready to step up, but I didn't really know how. I had just worked in every department. But with Vic, I got into like the pre production and setting up the film in India, and it was far larger. There were big partition scenes and train scenes and old. So, just running that film with the Indian team, I learned everything. And post that, I mean, I kept getting a lot of international films to be an execution person, but I really wanted to now understand how to produce. And with raising some money, I came to Bombay. And I knew only Vinay Pathak and Irfan Khan because I'd worked with them in my international as an assistant, as who as an usher who came to pick them up at the airport. And I was like, if you need anything, I'm around. Give me a shout. So yeah, started from there.
So, are you in touch with Vic?
It's been, I think, the pandemic I've lost touch, but yes, dear, in Toronto Film Festival and otherwise, I love Vic, and he's been extremely empowering. One of actually, one of my very sweet stories is Valley of Flowers. When I was an intern, Anurag wrote dialogues for Valley of Flowers, and I was the one who went to pick him up at the airport. And I was like, if you need anything, he's like, I know Delhi. Like, okay. And then after so many years, working with the people in the industry and knowing Bombay better. So yeah, when I came to Bombay,
But
my friends were all the technicians who, like the light boys and the craft services, and my friends were all the people who came to Delhi and Punjab, and I was doing their tickets and doing a lot of coordination work, and they became my friends when I came here. So yeah.
did it ever occur to you that you would want to get into acting or direction or something like that?
I think in school I was always on stage and doing acting, but over a period of time, I really love producing, working with directors, and I've grown to realize that in India this is an equity-driven industry. So this is not like producers here are usually people who come with money. There are builders, there are studios, there are they have the check to sign, and they are producers. However, I'm somebody who finds a story, then finds the actors, makes the budget, and then goes finds the money, and then I come back, like, okay, I found this, and this is how to it. While people like me are really, there are a lot of people like me in US and in other parts of the world, young people coming out of colleges, finding a story that they want to produce, and then they hustle the money. They have multiple investors, and they have business plans and P&Ls, and I've done all that, crowd-funded peddlers and haramkhor. Now, having produced 35 films, and still I'm that person who goes and raises money. So it's always been push and pull. It's been difficult to explain people what I do, because it's so traditional, and it's a family run business, and it has high stakes of entry in the business. But I think the independent world, and then taking the films international and taking them to festivals, opening new doors, has allowed me to also understand how I can add value in the current system, and how my journey is unique as an independent producer, with just constantly making content. And I mostly work with first time directors. So I love the rawness, I love the passion, and for me that is the adrenaline. And so I've been doing that before there was the Disney and Hotstar. So having produced 25 first time director movies and taking them international, taking them to Cannes, taking them to Toronto, doing the PR, writing the plans, returning the money, doing it all over again. I mean, I love doing this, and I'm so grateful. So I want to double down on producing. And I generally feel that our business and our industry needs far more producers who are doing this, who are like creative producers and are managing expectations from investors to producers so the industry can expand. Yeah.
So for a lot of our viewers who are following this and who want to get and do be the next Guneet Monga, uh, what are the challenges a producer faces?
पहले तो समझाना पड़ता है लोगों को कि what you do, because our industry, all actors are producers, then all directors are producers. So I'm just like, I'm only a producer. I'm not an actor, uh, and I don't come from wealth to sign checks. So पहले तो you have to explain people what you do. So there are challenges, but there is also a clear process. We have co-production treaties with so many countries. I got curious about the Indo-French treaty, and I was able to. I draw joy from the way Lunchbox was constructed as the business of it. We were able to raise 40% of the money under the treaty with France, and raise lesser in equity, so that decreasing the pressure of the equity, but having grants built in, having tax rebates built in because of our treaty. 1985, this treaty was signed. We were the first ones to use it in 2012, and then we used it again for Masan. Um, so there is clear path if you get curious on how one can open new doors, new ways of financing, and then come to India, make a film, and then you have that leverage to even open at festivals, and to be able to have, because you're under the co-production, so it's almost like it's also a French film and it's also an Indian film, so you get. And the beauty of co-producers, like when you get a co-producer, they come with their experience and their years of contacts, and you're a partner, and you're both building a project together. So I think not just limiting yourself to way India works, expanding, traveling, going to festivals, signing up for programs. I did a program called TAP, Transatlantic Partnership. It was a scholarship that I applied for and I got, and it was 1 week in Berlin, 1 week in Halifax, 1 week in New York, and it was a producer training program and mid-career producer training program. So it's not for absolute starters, but it's for if you've done one or two films and you have real life questions like legal or like actor contracts or shoot permissions, or you want to deep dive into other treaties and tax rebates that are available, or sales, marketing, sales agents, conversations with them, where to draw the line, how many years to give your rights, how many kinds of rights. So we were trained on by real life people doing in the business as mentorship. So it was 1 week in Berlin, which taught us everything about how Europe works. It was 1 week in Halifax, which taught us everything how Canada works. And then it was 1 week in New York. It was a scholarship that I got after writing an application, and that informed me to construct Lunchbox, and that's how we were able to pull that off in our paperwork, and also build mentors as we go along. I had my teachers I could run it by, I could ask those questions, and even expand our viewpoint to not just directors who are here. I met Ritesh Batra at the Goa Film Festival, and then we both again got a scholarship to go to Rotterdam. Uh, he as a writer director, me as a producer. We spoke there again, and he was a teacher in Doha, and we started talking about building this movie together. I think a sense of, I think what's helped me sail through this is a sense of wonder and a constant sense of curiosity. So there are ways of, I encourage so many producers, and I feel people lose the strength after one film, but there is so much out there now. There's crowdfunding, there is, I mean, I'd put peddlers and haramkhor call for money on my Facebook, and I made those films through people crowdfunding on Facebook. And I was always very clear to tell them that, I'm experimenting, we might just lose your money, so why don't you just give me like 10 lakhs, we'll make something in 1 crore. And we went to Cannes with it. All the investors were so happy that the experiment worked with first time people. So I think that gives me a lot of joy of being
Were you
indie.
able to were you able to pay them back?
Yes, on Haramkhor, yes. On Peddlers, we sold to a studio that still does not revert to my calls, or I had to learn through having bad experiences. So, unfortunately, but everybody was the same person who was also invested on Haramkhor, and everybody got their money back on Haramkhor. On Peddlers, it's a journey that we are on, and we were committed and cheated by a film studio. So, lessons to
Are you,
learn.
well, since you were cheated by a film studio, you don't want to name them and shame them?
Yeah, I think everybody knows. If you just look up peddlers and then the studio will arrive.
No,
Yeah,
but that's really difficult, isn't it? If you're a
yeah,
producer and you're taking people's money and putting something together, and then a studio doesn't honor its part of the commitment.
yes, absolutely. It's
And
very hard.
how often does that happen?
It's only happened to me once, and that just absolute unprofessionalism. No revert to mails, promoter run company. So just, it just feels like, what are we doing? And their CEOs have tried to close, but it's hard. It's hard. I feel they're so well oiled to how the Hindi film industry works that there is really no respect for building an industry with independent producers and directors and giving those opportunities and treating them as equals more than anything else. So that has happened to me once, but I've also had really good experiences with other studios in India and continued to be in the business.
Yeah. So why do you think that is the case? That you know they don't encourage independent producers?
There's definitely ageism. I mean, I have definitely faced ageism. Being 26 and producing Gangs of Wasseypur is just, I've always had to prove. Like, I remember coloring my hair white, wearing a sari, praying for specs, just to be taken seriously, just to be in that room. I don't know if it's a gender thing. I don't always put it on gender. I mean, I do think ageism is a real thing in India where but it's actively now changing because of the digital stars of the digital influencer world, and there's so many young people who know more, and they're doing more, and they have more power and more communication and more strength, teenagers and 18 years old. But when I was building a business and being on the business side, like, I don't smoke. I don't have a culture of, being out at parties. I've always felt like, stuff that I wish I was older to be able to be taken as an equal. So, and it's so difficult to articulate that because it's so between the lines. It's not direct on your face. But definitely there is ageism.
And all the movies you've done so far, I mean, if one looks at those movies, they've all been different, right? How what has been your magic formula of picking the right movies? How have you managed to do that?
Intuitional. It is so intuitional, and it is the energy and the hunger of the writer director and ours. Of कि कुछ कुछ ऐसा करना है, मतलब कुछ interesting करना है, and we show up with that energy every day. So not being jaded, not being afraid. So let's get into those uncharted territories. Like, I'm really proud of a film that I produced called Tigers, which is directed by Danis Stanovic, a Bosnian director who we were able to bring here and do a Hindi language film with him. It was his dream. We had met at the Venice Film Festival. He told me about the film, and we did everything to make it happen. And incredible movie with Imran Hashmi, but a Bosnian director, and he had done No Man's Land and won the Oscar for that. So just trying to figure out different ways of storytelling. There's no set formula, but a lot of time the inherent nature of trying to do the right thing and taking those decisions, which every day you're put into, you have choices, and you take decisions where you put the film in front of you, you put the project above you, and that's where you start making the right choices for the project. They might not be the right choice for you, for so many other parameters that come in, but this is art, and you need to put it out there in its true form. So that is really important to me, and I think that allows me to be independent till the very end. But I mean, why do you fall in love with a book? It works for you. So it's so intuitional. It's so, reading those 100 pages, you're like, I like this. I think we can do some magic with this, and then we go on. Yeah, we never know which festival it will go to or which award it will win to. Never imagined being, associated with an Oscar winning film. But it is just showing up. It's just about showing up every day with that intention, and it adds up.
So tell me about your Oscar winning film.
Period. End of sentence is a short documentary, and it really started by these 12 to 14-year-old girls in LA in a school called Oakwood, and they wanted to get together and donate a pad machine. And they were working with a non-profit organization in LA that had a partner organization in India, and that partner organization was looking to donate in Hapur, which is a city that organization worked in. So these girls in LA, as their school project, started raising money to donate a pad machine. It really started with that kind of innocence and passion, and they did bake sales and yoga thons and collected money like $2,000 to donate a pad machine. They donated a pad machine, and then they thought, okay, now we've solved a problem. But then the running of it, the raw material, lack of electricity, a constant electrician on the side, everything started adding up. The machine got hot, then it needs to get new wiring done. So the team in India kept being at a place where it's still not up and running. And the whole idea of starting a small scale industry where few women can be employed, and then they can make those pads and sell those pads and run a unit on their own. It is a large ambition to make it self sustainable. But this conversation started. That conversation led to an idea that why don't we, because they became at a point, those kids in LA, beautiful young girls, came to a point like, how much can we keep asking? So they said, let's just shoot a film on the journey of us donating this, and of getting this up and running and making this sustainable. So let's shoot, and then maybe we can make a film and send it to more people and put it on YouTube, and maybe put it online and have more people partner with us on it. And it started with that ambition, and some of their parents helped. Their English teacher was phenomenal, encouraged them a lot. And one of the parent got in touch with me. Our girls are looking at shooting something in India. I joined the team as an executive producer. One of the parent helped find Raika, the director, who was just graduated from USC and had just done her diploma film. And she came on board. I'll go to India and shoot. And that's in innocence that film started. And then they did another round of fundraisers that I participated in. I kept going to LA to just be the Indian support with the girls and encourage them in those fundraisers. We did fundraisers in San Francisco, in LA, in New York. We raised around $40,000 and produced the film in India. Sikkya team helped in producing the film in India, and then it was edited there. A lot of people came on board to help with music, and incredible. There is one of the parent who's like who's a doc editor, and he kind of supervised on the edit to make it the best version of itself, and then it got into one festival, from one to other to the third, and it became Oscar shortlisted and then nominated. And we all went there to just, enjoy the process. But the ambition always was to raise more money and be able to do that. And that came true. It won, and the team started an organization, and funding from around the world came in. And now there are plants in Afghanistan, in Africa, in parts of India, and in parts of US. So really the power of storytelling.
Amazing. What an amazing story. Now that you've done something like this, and obviously it's worked and there's proof of the pudding, have you thought of identifying subjects, different subjects, and following this route so that more and more issues could be addressed?
Yes, I am on a journey of one more. Um, but it's such a, again. We're in such a subjective industry. I am putting together another short doc that where I think we can really help make a social change. But as filmmakers, we are observers. We come in with that lens. I don't think we can take responsibility of social change fully, but we can definitely shine the light and start a conversation with our work. So I am on a journey of two more short talks like that.
Yeah. Would you like to say on what topics they are, or it's
One
a little premature at the
on
moment?
Yeah, one is on wildlife, and one is um, on young brides being married off very young, and they are beginning to find their voice. Yeah,
Interesting.
child brides,
Five brides.
child brides.
Child brides. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Early in your
yes.
days, you also did worked on a documentary or a movie on bonded labor. Am I right?
Kavi, yes, that was the first film that went to the Academy Awards. And that is a fiction film. It was not a documentary. And that was a diploma film of, again, a USC graduate, Greg Helvey. He'd come to India to produce it. And he actually went to all these production houses to look for a producer. And I think then he wrote to Meera, and Meera Nair connected us and said, there is this young producer in India you should meet. And I was like, I'm happy to produce this for you. And then I came on board and made the film happen in India with him. And I remember going to Naidu sir in Prasad Lab and saying, "Mujhe film de do," just always like kisi ke ends de do. Just being that person who's just like, what does it take to make an independent film? Um, um, and that's how we made Kavi. And then Kavi got nominated, and I did attend the Academy Awards in 2009, which is my first time that I attended it. And that was with Kavi, and we were nominated in top five. We didn't win that year, but the nomination is incredible and an incredible experience.
And how many people there are in Sikkia right now?
Now we're a team of, I think, 45 people.
45 people. So,
And we
and
have we have five younger producers, and the whole idea is that we need to have more producers, and they're all running projects, and I am there with them, and also uh,
mentoring them.
yeah, I don't, I still think I need mentoring on setting up businesses, on setting up something that can scale more horizontally, to be able to have content pieces. I am somebody who's done one thing at a time. More recently, when I was running Anurag Kashyap Films, we did multiple projects. But more recently, I've taken time and taken one thing at a time. But there's definitely market opportunity. I do feel this is the best time to be out of the industry. So we are growing. We are growing slowly. I keep saying this. We are mushrooming in Aram Nagar.
Uh, so tell me, as an independent producer, one of the challenges that you faced in your initial days was distribution, right?
Yes.
How
Yes.
has it changed since then? Do you have to go through a studio, or as an independent producer, you can distribute your movie?
A world of difference has happened. A world. I feel like I have fought so many battles being first or being early trying to do this. Incredible life lessons, and years of heartache trying to figure out the P&A and the theatrical model. To the point I feel I used to feel stupid that what am I thinking making independent films, raising money in different ways and feeling very proud of it when the release mechanism is just bottleneck, and you need so much money. You need $1 million to go to theaters, and I don't have big stars that have that vehicle. So it was always heartbreaking journey of being in those rooms or talking about some of the most beautiful films, Masan, Shahid, anything, Monsoon Shootout, Peddlers, Haramkhor, being in those rooms and always being judged कि ये कौन release करेगा, ये कैसे चलाएंगे हम, and then figuring it out on your satellite market and your digital rights to be minute. from then to now, the world has changed with the digital players coming in, and appreciation of good content, and minus the star system.
Yeah.
While that has started happening, this is the time to double it down and be in a place where you're backing content, and you're not, more power to the star system. And I think we coexist. But now there is a point of release, there is a point of treating stories by first time directors as premium content, and not putting them in a box ki isko kaun hi dekhega. So I have had a journey of a decade where I feel now I get love for the work that I did back then, because now people are experiencing it more and are handling it more, and now people are even articulating that what a creative producer does at business to business level. So definitely there is a world of difference, and you have platforms and you have global audiences. You have huge audiences sitting there with 30 million plus, or 17 million or 5 million at different platforms. And then they're all talking, making an event out of it, reaching out to you on Twitter, reaching out on talking about the movie. So the I think pandemic also upped it, the experience of habit change. But I do think cinemas will be back, and cinema experiences will be back, and there's nobody that can take that away. It's just that non-major star cast films have found, or first time director films, or stories which are an observation and not just instant gratification, and it is not, they're different journeys, and those stories have also found wings and are treated as premium content.
So distribution to that extent has got democratized to in a
Yes,
okay.
yes, opportunity has definitely increased.
So tell me, of all the movies that you made, I know it's a tough question for me to ask you which is the one you like the most, but if you had to pick three movies which you're proud of, I know you're proud of all your movies, but three movies where which you had challenges and then it turned out to be very well, which would those three movies be?
uh, there were challenges on
Something that
all
was
of
like
them,
what we call is a
but
sleeper hit, right? The
I
sleep.
I do want to use this opportunity to say Peddlers is one of my very, very favorite films, very close to my heart. Also, it was so many first time careers who are all now doing so well in the business, but Peddlers still feels like the world needs to see it. It still doesn't feel like, it's, though it premiered in Cannes in 2012, but it still doesn't feel like it is aged or dated in terms of its context. And I still feel, and I'm hopeful and an overly optimistic person, that will come out and we will experience the joy of the world experiencing it and talking about it. But yeah, outside
It's
of that,
it's not on any platform now.
no, it's still with the amazing studio.
Okay.
um but outside of that, I would say Tigers, I would say Shahid, I would definitely say Lunchbox, Masan. Yeah. I sold my house for Monsoon Shootout and financed Monsoon Shootout. So I love Monsoon Shootout also. So I think three is a less slot. Yeah.
So, so how do you manage to stay so grounded after all the adulation? You know, you're very unique from all other producers, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're not the typical producer. When you think of a producer, you have a different, uh,
Yeah.
it's a different perception. You're different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people think you're a creative, you're a creator rather than a producer, right?
Mhm.
The right word now, like you said, creative producer sounds nice, but tell me, where do you go from here?
I want to take brown stories to the rest of the world. I've always wanted to do that. I want to be able to make films like Lion. I want to be able to make films like Crazy Rich Asians, and I want to be able to make films like Room, like Short Term 12. I want to be able to tell brown stories to whole world, you know. And I want to continue working with amazing talent here, and also dabble in English language with Indian stories, with Indian filmmakers. Yeah.
Why hasn't it really? Why haven't Indian filmmakers or Indian producers actually whatever we do to a large extent, it's India centric. We don't
Yeah,
look at it
that's
from a global perspective.
it comes
Very
down to
few.
distribution. Yeah, it comes down to
But
distribution. I mean, because we are an equity-driven company, we are an equity-driven industry, and there is
Mhm.
somebody, either a studio or a financier or a group of financiers or a film fund, that's sitting back with basic interest and profit. And those decisions define how the life of the film is. So that has further defined distribution to rights, and we are so unique in our structure that usually we sell the whole world in India to satellite, and that's happened for so
True.
long. So that has limited the larger extent to diaspora who consume ZTV and Colors and Star TV, and who consume this. So that's what we were able to break through with Lunchbox. The minute it went to different set of players in 120 countries, their distributor, their TV channels, in Turkey, in Japan, in Iran, in US, it was Sony Picture Classic. That is what really allowed a sort of an international distribution, which is non-diaspora distribution. And that method is not really built in for us, so it's exploratory. That means that anybody at the power of decision making needs to think 10 years. You cannot look at Abhi. And the minute you look at right now, then you're just like, okay, here is everything right now, and this is what it goes. So even if you're a producer in US, if you're an independent producer in US, you have conversations with the biggest of studios, and it's about domestic sales. It is not about worldwide sales there and then. There are players who come in, and that's how so beautifully English language content has traveled, because there are distributors around the world taking that, making it their own, releasing it on their own timings. And that was the biggest lesson out of Lunchbox. The film released over 2 years, over 24 months, the distribution happened. The business of that kept happening for 3 years. It was nominated in BAFTA in 2015 when it released in India in 2013. So, because the distributor there released it a year later and was qualifying for BAFTA within the year, and then the numbers and the audit reports came in. But one film can't change the system. So, if there is somebody making those decisions and saying, "Let's take it globally," then it has to be a long drawn out process, because for 100 years the business here is set up in a certain way. And
What?
now with Amazon and Netflix and Disney, there is a chance to break out digitally, but we will find our language, like how Korea is doing it. And I don't think that time is far.
Yeah, that was my question, but you preempted me and answered the question. That's what I was going to ask you. Like with Netflix, Amazon, and Disney, and all the OTT players who are in so many countries. I mean, there is an opportunity for us to
I think
create
that was
content that is global, right? Have you
absolutely.
thought of Have you thought of anything like that?
You know, I actually have always been exposed as a filmmaker and as a business person, been exposed to the international market. So I inherently think about inherently my inherent nature is not thinking about Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan territory. Like my brain works as, where can we take this? How many doors can we open? So inherently, I want to do that. Yes, there is something that I'm working on, which can be a really amazing Indian story for the rest of the world, and that is the next decade of my life. To tell you in short, yeah.
Great. Uh, we covered, I think, quite a lot here. I want to ask you quickly. Tell me a bit about your parents and your family.
I actually lost both my parents in 2008, and within 6 months of my mom, I lost my dad. I'm the only child. And we come from a humble beginning, stayed on rent in Delhi in a house. And I think my mom's dream in life was to buy her own house. And I was very proud. I produced a lot of ads, and I was line producing in commercials. And I was very proud that at 22, I was able to buy a house. My dad and me both were able to buy her a house in GK1 in Delhi. But when they left, mom had cancer issues, dad had kidney issues and a heart attack 6 months after. I was 24 by the time dad passed. I was so disillusioned about this whole thing of property and the concept of buying a house. I sold everything, put and put money into movies, and it is almost like putting money into education. It was not a lot, but it is everything that I had. So I've not really had a plan B. So it was always plan A, and I think they built me in a way that to have faith in my ideas and in my intuition from childhood. So yeah, typical Punjabi family, middle class, and I pinch myself every day, and I'm grateful every day for the life that I've been able to build with their blessings and their learnings. I'm very proud to be born to them. So sometimes I reach the office and I pinch myself, holy shit, they all work with me. And this is my office, and I'm able to run this. It still surprises me. It still gives me jitters, and all I can do is just be grateful. There's somebody watching up there and allowing me to make those right choices.
Yeah, they're there watching you, guiding
Yes,
you, blessing you. Uh,
yes,
you're so passionate about everything that you do, and even when on a personal level, when I've connected with you, you're g- grounded, passionate. You always speak about being grateful. All these words. Fearless, courageous. I mean, I
yes.
remember. So I want to ask you, what are your other passions in life besides films? Do you have any
I
other hobbies?
actually, I went through a huge phase of self doubt after Lunchbox, and I was just like, I should be getting more opportunities to do more films like this. But my peer group and the conversation around me at that point was like, "ये तो fluke हो गया ना, एक बार हो गया, बार-बार थोड़ा ना होता है." So it really led me into a place of like, what am I doing? Because distribution was so difficult, and for me, I left the business, and I went deeply into a journey of figuring out. I used to find a lot of peer group in US, but not really here, unfortunately. So I thought that either I should move or I should do something, but I think it led me to my core basic, which is a very spiritual journey and following Gurbani. I love any time that I have, I'm actually listening to Shabads, doing seva, and it's not something that you can talk about, but any time of the day, my entire office knows that at 4 p.m. there'll be a satsang and I will go there. So if there is, I'll push everything else to go there, because that is, I think that's what keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me real. And it's all about that. So I have a deep spiritual journey, and that gave me faith to come back after 2, 3 years of, and also reconnect and be grateful for the life and my parents. And I had so many questions: why things like this happen? Why are you not, why is it not fair? Why you see all your friends having a normal set of life and having so many emotional needs in terms of structure of parents. So yeah, that hit me a lot, and I went into a deep journey of reading more material, of listening and learning, and yeah, and I think that is the real thing in life. So I want to be able to be able to, I think, just spread the message of being grateful, because we have so much and we don't even realize it, and we're always looking for more. There's already enough. So yeah, so my,
Very
I don't know if that is a passion or a hobby or something, but I'm very curious, and every day I hear something, and sab likha hua hai, in the Guru Granth Sahib, or in the, it's so much, it's so vast, and the learning is so deep. So I think I am a seeker. I just realized it over the years.
good. Thank you so much, Guneet. It was fabulous speaking to you.
Thank
I mean, I can go on talking, but it was
Yes,
fantastic. And thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best. Continue to
thank you.
giving us all this unique,
I hope
nice,
so.
differentiated movies. And wish
Yeah.
you all success and lots of love.
Thank you so much, Raj, for having me. I admire you so much, and just so glad to talk to you and share my story and my life. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.